All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the Mikestand. We're just waiting on more people to show up. People a chance to get in here. We're just, as I said, just waiting on people to come in before we get started. I hope everybody's having a good week. Anyways, la di dee da dee da, la di dee da dee da, la di dee da dee da. Dee da dee da, la dee dee da dee da, la dee dee da dee da. Anyways, yeah, so it's hump day, Wednesday, so we'll have some interesting story. Hello, second person. Let's see. If you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. We're just waiting on a few more people to show up before we get started. I hope you're having a good day and a good week thus far. If you have any questions or want to talk about anything, feel free to say something. Like I said, we're just waiting to give people a chance to get in here before we get started. So hopefully you had a good week this week. Alrighty then, let's see now. What else can we talk about? Yeah, so anyways, walking through a crowd in a faceless town, I need to feel the touch of a friend. In the countryside, I wander far and wide. Isolation gets me again. I don't know where to go when I feel like crying. Oh my. Time to open myself, do something new. I want to stop and grow up a bit. Then suddenly my intuition and my wisdom grow. And then I know that most of all, care compassionately, strangers wherever they go. Thank you for waking me up. Let's see, what else? Dashing and daring, courageous and caring, faithful and friendly with stories to share. All through the forest they sing out in chorus, marching along as their song fills the air. Gummy bears, bouncing here and there and everywhere. Find adventure that's beyond compare. They are the gummy bears. They are the gummy bears. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web and he sighs. Can't you see? Just like flies. Look out. There goes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen up. He's got radioactive blood from a swing overhead. Take a look overhead. Hey there, there goes the Spider-Man. In the chill of night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Welcome he is yours. Action is his reward to him. Life is a great big hang up. Whenever there's a hang up, you'll find a Spider-Man. Right. Well, it would seem that the person probably is lurking, so that's okay. Anyways, I guess I'll go ahead and start talking about what we're going to be talking about tonight. I know it's a little bit earlier than usual, but I have at least one other person here, so they might try to get something going here. As I said, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream and see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. With all that being said, so let me tell you what's going on for tonight. So we're gonna going over like I guess 8 news stories, what have you. You know, we'll do some roundups, but also aside from the roundups, of course, we will also be having we'll be doing like probably like five news articles and 3 roundups basically. The 5 news articles are be coming from Bounding into Comics, 4 of them comics related, 1 anime related. Among the comics articles, including some Morbius stories to sink your teeth into, as well as well as let's see some other stories to talk about as well. Um, what are the other stories? As I'm trying to think here. Oh yeah, Rob Liefeld confirms DC Comics evictions, and they got some commentary from Tug on that umbrella guy. Also, Disney's latest debacle over Florida's anti-grooming bill exposes more of their hypocrisy, and then Tom King decides to go the route of John Ridley with um, another already established DC character, apparently with Guy Gardner in this case, and then also, of course, going to be probably going over the Damon Mill on the anime side of it. Going to be going over the Damon Mills article from Bounding into Comics, in which he tried to in which he tried to not him, but actually somebody from Funimation apparently tried to get A&N to pull the articles. Anyways, I'm gonna step away from the computer for a moment to try see if I can get this glare out of my face here. So let me first off give you some music to listen to. Let's see. All right, I'll be right back. All right. Sorry. I mean, I hope you guys didn't leave me just because I was just trying to get kind of the glare out of the way there. That's why I was, um, you can see me a little bit more here. Anyways, so yeah, so we got the Demon Mills, and then we'll do some wrestling roundups and some more news stories, of course, coming up here. Um, Well, without any further ado, then let me go ahead and get started. Now that we're past the 10-minute mark here, let me just go ahead and share something on the cursor, of course. That might help. There we go. Now on the cursor. All right. So go ahead and get started then. Okay. So the first story we're going to look at here tonight. All right. 10 best Morbius comic storylines to sink your fangs into. Article by Slade Hale, published yesterday. Today being, of course, Wednesday, March 23rd. Yesterday being Tuesday, March 22nd. All right, so here we go. Jared Leto is slated to debut as the living vampire Morbius in a live-action SSU film, um, dropping on April 1st. So April 1st, that would be a week from this Friday. Um, and it remains to be seen whether it can emulate the unexpected success of its spiritual predecessor, Venom. The character Venom. The character isn't particularly well known outside of comic book fandom, which means the first silver screen appearance will either be a hit or a flop. All right. Well, Morbius was actually featured in the Spider-Man the animated series cartoon of the 90s, so the mid 90s there. So he hasn't completely been ignored, but you know, as he is probably one of the maybe lesser known characters as some people state though. So anyways, as we continue on with the article here. In the meantime, newcomers should definitely bite down on a few key Marvel comic storylines um, that have presented the fearsome anti-hero in the best possible light or dark. Let's see how many you can soak up before Morbius hits theaters, then mark down how many comic book plot threads made it into the final film. His big debut in The Amazing Spider Man numbers 101 and 102. And here's some of the panels here from that. Hmm. And I wonder if Spider Man there is having some issues with his. Hmm. Michael Morbius was first introduced to comic book readers back in 1971 as a seemingly villainous monster, duking it out with the multi limbed Spider Man. They end up shedding some light on the character's origins, including his rare blood disease, which left him in a permanent state of disability. Later, he'd make great strides in the field of genetic research alongside his friend Emil, but when they decided on a risky, untested treatment method, it ended up cursing him with a terrifying side effect. Once feeble and frail, Morbius now possessed superhuman strength and uncanny, horrific abilities. Te- um, Teaming up against Carnage, Amazing Spider-Man number 378 to 380, Spectacular Spider-Man number 201 to 203, Spider-Man number 35 37, Spider-Man Unlimited number 1 and 2, Web of Spider-Man numbers 101 to 103. Morbius crossed paths with alien symbiotes several times over the years, including a brief tiff against Venom. But that was nothing compared to his actions during the Maximum Carnage storyline. The sprawling multi-issue epic featured Cletus Cassidy and his symbiote other other wreaking havoc alongside his partner Shriek. It was an opportunity for Morbius to pursue the right course of action, even if it meant teaming up with the very same Spider-Man who he fought against so many years prior. Plus, it was great to see him rubbing shoulders with the likes of Deathlock, Iron Fist, and the Black Cat. Now, in the cartoon series in the '90s, of course, they what they did is they kind of made Morbius and Black Cat, romantic items here. A match made in hell. Lizard, no turning back. In Spider-Man, Lizard, no turning back. This 2012 storyline showed a kinship between Morbius and Dr. Kurt Connors, otherwise known as the Lizard. Both had attempted to heal themselves, only for their treatments to backfire and turn them into monstrous creatures. In the tale, Morbius attempts to cure himself, and the Lizard before things go awry. Spider Man ends up going on the offensive against Morbius while numerous lizards get loose and begin wreaking havoc. Here, Morbius is portrayed as a man with great intentions who ends up remorseful over how easily his plans fell into ruin, which speaks volumes about his character. An occult bonanza, Rise of the Midnight Suns. This is an interesting one. Let's see. At least two of the characters, aside from Morbius, I recognize in this photo here are well. There's Blade down there in the towards the lower right hand corner, and maybe that's partner right behind him, and then Ghost Rider's in there as well. The early '90s saw Morbius take on a similar career path as Venom, battling evildoers with a variety of violent methods. In this tale, Morbius shrugs off his villainous past, tries to turn over a new leaf, um, but he soon bites off way more than he can chew. When monstrous demons invade New York, um, excuse me a moment, I'm gonna step away for a quick sec. I'll be right back, but I'll put on some music for you guys. Right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, continuing on with the article here. Doctor Strange decides to slap together a loose team consisting of the Night Stalkers, the Darkhold Redeemers, Ghost Rider, and Blade, along with Morbius to fight off the would-be apocalypse. The Midnight Suns brand didn't last very long, but Morbius' appearance in the story was one for the books. Slaughtering Slaughter, Morbius the Living Vampire number 6. Every hero, even an anti-hero, needs a good villain to outmatch them from time to time. And Vic Slaughter is one such character. This particular story revolves around Victor Slaughter, a former CIA operative suffering from PTSD, who would later be tasked with hunting down Morbius. The two fought to a brutal end, with Morbius seemingly killing Slaughter and burying him alive in a makeshift grave. However, Morbius had inadvertently infected Slaughter with a similar vampire disease, turning him into a monstrous enemy and an even more lethal killing machine. All right, so welcome back. Let's see now. A Ghost from the Past, Morbius Bond of Blood #1. Michael Morbius' first kill was none other than his lab partner and friend Emil Nikos, and it was a death that weighed heavily on the living vampire's conscience throughout the years. This 2021 story brought Morbius back full circle by sending him down the same dark path again. It all starts when Morbius learns that Emil's young son is dying of an illness. Morbius eventually strikes a deal with Dr. Zabo to infiltrate Ravencroft and steal research documents in return for a life saving vaccine. However, tragedy strikes again, and Morbius is left with another painful reminder of the cost incurred for messing with nature. Let's see now. Planet hopping craziness. Adventure into Fear #20 through 31. Okay, or S31, I guess. The 70s got off to a zany start with this elongated epic, focusing specifically on Michael Morbius galvanating between worlds. It begins with Morbius attacking an innocent woman after falling victim to his own bloodlust, which sets off a chain of events that ends up stranding him on an interdimensional world. From here, it's a bizarre concoction focusing on Morbius battling the caretakers of Arcturus, bantering with aliens that have eyeballs for heads, and dodging the pursuit of none other than the vampire hunter Blade. It's a weird, wacky, yet altogether interesting read with a lot of twists and turns that would never fly in Comic Con today. Interesting. Let's see. Just trying to see if you making any comment yet. Thwarting a Human Sacrifice. Vampire Tales, February 1974. This black and white story, straight out of Vampire Tales, is one of the creepiest and best of the decade. It's also one of the best stories featuring Morbius. Dousing the narrative with a rather wicked, unsettling plot revolving around his attempt to save Amanda Saint from a fate worse than death, Morbius eventually battles a gigantic demon spider summoned by a group of occultists, and the effect is made so much better by the lack of color on the page. It's grim, dark, and foreboding without losing the kinetic action that comes with any good classic comic book. Nullifying Threads, Morbius the Living Vampire, numbers 1 through 9. What's worse than dealing with supernatural demons, overpowered aliens, and pesky street thugs? Question got answered in this 9-issue 2013 series featuring Morbius trying to thwart a plan to extinguish thousands of lives using a small scale version of the ultimate nullifier. This series jettisoned Morbius' typically dramatic speech in favor of a more contemporary approach, but the history was still there. It was a far cry from the anti hero's lustrous history, but the story did bring back a lot of key characters while referencing past events that helped shape Morbius' life. Ultimate Universe Morbius, Ultimate Spider-Man number 95. And here's, I guess, a panel from that book, artwork from that book. While Earth 616's version of Morbius was an actual living vampire bred of scientific means, his Earth 1610 ultimate counterpart was born directly from the supernatural. In this alternate universe, Morbius was a direct descendant of Vlad Dracul II, more commonly known as the inspiration for Count Dracula, also known as Vlad the Impaler, as it were. Like before, Morbius battles his inner demons of bloodlust in order to hunt down vampires rather than proliferate their existence. Some fans prefer this version of Morbius due to his supernatural origins. Others prefer the novelty of Morbius as a creature created by genetic science. And it's a genetic science storyline that was portrayed in the Spider-Man the animated series of the 90s too. So there we go with that one. So there's the first story. I'm going to step away again for a moment. I'll be right back. back. So, so we'll get ready to move on to the next article here. Um, Hopefully you haven't run away from me there. Anyways, um, go ahead and move on to the next article here. Right. Bob Liefeld um, confirms DC Comics evictions from Burbank Warner Media office. That umbrella guy react. Article by J.D. Augustine, published yesterday, March 22nd. Good. All right. I'm guessing you might be alert. Right? All right. So here we go. DC Comics eviction from their new home office in the same Burbank building as the rest of Warner Media is being confirmed by a comic book pro and his inside sources. All right. Deadpool 2 Marvel Entertainment. Deadpool and Youngblood creator Rob Liefeld says he and his quote SoCal DC buddies unquote can absolutely can quote unquote absolutely verify the ouster of and the publisher's new stripped down work model. Um, Quote, can confirm this is absolutely true from my SoCal DC buddies, unquote, Liefeld tweeted along with Bleeding Cool story. Quote, shared workplace, unquote, quote, hot desk model in full effect, reduced office force staff again, unquote. So, now, from what I understand, oh yeah, this is something that this is from one of Tug's videos on the matter. Yeah. Now, as I understand, the hot desk model basically means that nobody has their own desk. All the desks you have maybe just a small number of desks or whatever, and the desks are shared. They're shared by everybody. So no personal touches or anything like that. Bleeding Cool was the first to break the news and explain that the hot desk model and shared workspace mean everything is collectivized and no one has their own desk or office anymore, which basically is just what I said. Making it worse is this is just the latest reduction in DC Comics means and operations. Pundit and YouTube creator That Umbrella Guy reacted to Liefeld's confirmation and the entire story, blaming the privileged attitude of today's comic pros and the wokeness in the industry. Uh huh. Basically, when you go around acting like fans should be grateful for being their fans of yours, um, and basically acting like you're the next big thing or whatever isn't going to go over too well with fans, a lot of fans. So, anyways, citing details from the Bleeding Cool article, it becomes clear DC Comics personnel weren't being allowed back into the building to get their belongings left behind after a period of working from home. And of course, that was happening during the lockdowns and on all that with COVID and all that. Quote, that should say something about your status, unquote, Tug said. Um, DC Comics occupied 3 floors of the real estate until it was ripped from their grasp by Warner Media. Which usually happens when you start to lose money for a company, not gain them any. Um, which is going to use the space for something else. Probably something they feel is more profitable, I'd imagine. While the former find a new location for themselves close by, Tug points out this is not the first time they were forced to move. According to Bleeding Cool, staff and creatives were doing, quote, such a good job, unquote, working from home during the pandemic that it dawned on Warner they had an expense they no longer had to cover. In other words, why spend the money on office space if you can still get the same results by having people work at home? You know that's I'd say that's a pretty considered a pretty smart business decision, wouldn't you? Quote. So they're saying you did such a good job. We're going to fire some of you. We're going to move some of you into shared offices, smaller quotes. Yeah, that's a great excuse right there, isn't it? Unquote, Tug observed. Actually, I think I do remember watching this video with him talking about it. And like he's even got the whole like kind of hey, take a picture thing going there. The move and hot desk policy were initially kept quiet with sources to go by until a DC staffer posted evidence of quote packing up their cubicle unquote while confirming the new conditions they have to work under. It's a far cry from the personalized office space DC Comics prided itself on for years because, quote, they made money, unquote, Tug noted. Rubber band balls, neon signs, and potted plants were a common sight around the workplace in the good old days of Dan Didio. They justify the shared workspace, says Tug and Bleeding Cool, by virtue of the reality not everyone will be at work at the same time. Whoever is present gets to sit where they like, which Tug considers cruel, in quote, soul crushing and suppressing of individuality. Yeah, I remember Tug saying all that too. In a nutshell, they went from the impression Warner cared about them like DC Comics staff were part of the family to the first come first serve fight over desks, pencils, and materials. And then of course Tug, as even Yellow Flash has shown, how the mighty have fallen in a way when he's showing off the books there. This disheartening development for DC Comics workforce is part of the trend Tug has been discussing for years. Manga overtaking domestic comic sales and Tug's not the only one who's been talking about this either. A lot of commentators have, including myself, Yellow Flash. I think it was actually Young Rippa 59 who's basically said that DC now stands for Dead Company. So you have a few sources right there. But the West, even though it props up overall comic sales in the US because the way the latter is measured. Largely, Tug says the attitude toward fans of those in the industry brought the decline on them all. hmm Yeah, and that's another thing they've been talking about too for a while there. So there we go with that article. Let's see. Let me go back and see what else is on here. See if there's any. I guess there's nobody. Far nobody's really. versing. All right. Give me a moment. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go off camera here for a sec. All right, I'm back. And of course, as I'm reading these articles, if you have something pops into your head, feel free to comment on it and comment or ask questions about it. As we're going to, anyways, um, as we're going to continue on with the next article here. Hey, Disney's latest debacle over Florida's anti-grooming bill is just the latest piece of evidence exposing corporate America's sickening hypocrisy. Article by Slade Hale, published yesterday, March 22nd. So let's see what this has to say then. Slade Hale seems to be a newer guy, I guess, because I hadn't seen his name on articles before. So let's see what he has to say here. Corporate America has a real problem on its hands, and it's only getting worse. As a woke mob attempts to cudgel major, major corporations into adopting its radicalized stance on issues of economics, sexual proclivities, and gender theory, more and more seem to cave out of abject to cave or many and more seem to cave out of abject cowardice and an unwillingness to stay in their own lane. It's a scene largely reminiscent of the Spartan army from 300, pushing a bunch of Persian invaders on a cliff in slow motion, with corporations representing the latter. Okay. The latest victim to find itself shoved to the precipice is Disney itself, an ardent proponent of radical left wing ideals. But is it because of choice or an ultimatum? It all started when Disney refused to take a political side regarding Florida's less than controversial bill, which barred discussions about sexual orientation and gender identity with kindergarten to grade 3 students. In a rational and sane world, no one would argue this. In fact, they'd be all for it. Yeah, why are you even discussing anything sexual involving? I mean, there's got to be something a little bit wrong there if you're wanting to discuss anything, beyond the point that boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. Beyond that point, kids that young really don't need to know anything about sex. Okay? Why would you even want to talk about that with them? They don't need gender studies that young. They don't need to know about, they don't need to be told that a little boy doesn't need to be told that if he wants to, he cut off his, you know what. Okay? It's, you know, you don't need to be having those discussions with kids that young. Okay? The only thing that kids that young need to know is that that boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. That's it. Okay. Beyond that, don't need to say anything more about that to kids that young. The left immediately mobilized, creating a de facto marketing campaign, which involved titling the bill "Don't Say Gay," unquote, which is wholly dishonest and misleading. Because that's not what it is. It's basically giving parents the right to basically object to it's more of an anti-grooming bill. Is I think what Slade actually put as part of the title in the article here. That's neither what the bill says nor what it stands for. It merely blocks teachers from discussing sexual topics with children barely out of the cradle. Which I think, again, and as he stated earlier, I think most people would agree that that's a very intelligent and sane thing to do. As I said earlier, you don't need to be talking to kids about that kind of stuff when they're that young. The only thing little girls and boys that age need to know that boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. That's the extent of what they need to know. Okay. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they need to know both things, but like for boys, the fact that they have a penis and they know where it's at, and girls they have a vagina and they know where it's at. That's the extent of what they need to know. They don't need to know anything beyond that. Naturally, the left used their cliched and hyperbolic quote, "Your silence is deafening," um, unquote, routine to try and shame Disney CEO Bob Chapek into calling out the bill directly. And naturally, he caved, just like the cowards running America's major corporations are so prone to do. However, that didn't spare Disney from mob justice. Quite the contrary, in fact. Of course, because the more you cave into them, the more they're going to ask of you. The more they're going to push and push and push until you said enough. And you start pushing back. And you start pushing them to the precipice, and they start to feel like they're about to fall. Disney was accused of not calling out the bill fast enough and not doing enough to promote LGBTQ plus messaging in media, which is not true because the last few years they've been doing a lot. So, because they wouldn't cave on this one issue, all of a sudden they're the enemy. Go figure. As a result, Disney tried to stave off criticism from the blue checks on Twitter, the Twidiots, as I like to call them, while allegedly reinserting a homosexual scene into the upcoming Buzz Lightyear animated movie. Again, kids do not need to be exposed to that. You're putting a homosexual sex scene into a animated movie that's directed at little kids. Disney, what are you? Are you child predators? Because you're sure acting like it. Ah, doing that. Yet the company still faces down a barrage of bad press, thanks in large part to select Disney employees declaring that they're going to stage walkouts during their breaks, no less. Oh boy. In order to exercise their inner slacktivist You will recall that Netflix faced down a similar situation a mere few months ago. Yeah, that was the David Chappelle situation because a bunch of Slackovists wanted Netflix to cancel Dave Chappelle's comedy special, and they just didn't have it. And Netflix, at least, now granted, at times Netflix is known for being pretty woke, but at least they stood up for Dave Chappelle right there. So in that case, Netflix largely stood its ground, taking the side of comedian Dave Chappelle, who refused to bend the knee to the woke mob regarding comments about transgenderism made during his infamous The Closer special. The mass walkouts announced to a microscopic handful of Netflix employees who accomplished literally nothing. David Chappelle now has a new Netflix deal that includes 4 new comedy specials. Could it be that maybe Netflix actually wants to make money? That maybe they actually prefer making money than bending the knee? Wow, could that be something? Wow, revolutionary. They actually want to make money in 2022, no less. Ah. As more and more American companies decide to fall in line with the woke agenda, the overwhelming majority of consumers will begin to tune out, and they already have. We've seen it across all media. We of course we just talked about it with comics. We've seen it in we started to see it in movies a bit more, television. People are starting to tune out. A lot of people I know of are actually watching more YouTube than regular TV, including myself. So, um, yeah. So let's see. The less penchant for sexualizing little children has now become startling obvious, and they are no longer hiding the ball. Could the left be the actual child molesters? Is a lot of their ranting and raving actually been more of a cover? Anyways, I'm gonna step away from the computer for a moment, as it's getting a little dimmer in here. So I'll be right back. Yeah, let me turn on some music here. I'll be right back. All right. Anyways, um, here. I'm still here. Just doing something real quick here. Another bit of a reminder. All right, let's see now. Yeah, so we're at the 56-minute mark now. Okay, so let's see. Let's as we continue on here. No responsible parent with a functioning prefrontal cortex would allow an adult to speak to their 6-year-old child regarding sexual appetites and gender identity. Agreed. Most people would categorically agree with that statement. The only parents who probably would do that are the ones who are already woke. Um, in fact, this used to be deemed grooming of children, the kind of thing adults were thrown in jail for, and added to sex offender registry list. Hmm. Again, you don't talk to kids that young about anything sexual. You don't. Only thing little kids that young need to know about anything regarding their genitalia or anything like that is that boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. That's it. Um, Now it's become a mainstream talking point of the left. The goal is to normalize pedophilia as just another lifestyle choice. Uh huh. As opposed to a predatory crime on our most vulnerable. Well, I like this guy's. I like this guy's. Um, like this guy's style. Slade Hale here. I like this guy's style. Very direct. Um, Teachers have access to kids for a large portion of the day. They will continue to try and fill your child's head with predatory messaging. It's a sentiment mirrored by the extreme radical Biden administration, which is currently seeking to plant Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court, despite a shocking history of going soft on pedophile sex offenders. Leftists installed into various institutions all share the same common thread. Not only that, but teachers have been caught advising each other to hide these discussions from parents, which is why the Florida bill was proposed in the first place. When left wing teachers are deciding what your child should and should not be taught in terms of sexual content, we truly have crossed over into dark territory. And that's why in a number of parts of the country, that's why you see a lot of parents doing more homeschooling, not sending their kids to public school, but actually schooling them at home, keep them away from this garbage. As a woke radicalism bleeds over into comic books, television, and movies, more and more parents will take notice. Now, let me tell you this: they never did any of this kind of garbage in the comics of old. Okay, I can tell you that for a fact. All right. So, um, take notice and begin tuning out. Last year, children's network Nickelodeon suffered a severe ratings collapse after horrified parents bore witness to the company's bizarre and inappropriate Pride Month propaganda material. It's not just about sexual issues either. Wokeness in general has a detrimental effect on a company's bottom line, as evidenced by the alienating behavior of companies like Gillette and Coca Cola, to name a few, who thought it was a great idea to insult and degrade their target audience or push racist internal policies. And yes, you can be racist against white people. Excuse me, my Chloe's barking again. I'm gonna have to go tend to her. I'll be right back. Hold on a sec. Let me. All right, back. That had to deal with the dog, of course. Anyways, um, so getting back to the article here, we'll just pass an hour mark here. Then there's the issue of corporations like the NBA turning a blind eye to the genocide of Uyghur Muslims in China in exchange for access to their market. Hollywood is guilty of similar levels of hypocrisy, pouring out of every proverbial orifice. All right, and it's having an ugly effect on society in general. Remember, all of these corporations and entities are now fully invested in the support of Ukraine and the opposition to Russia over the current conflict. When the news becomes too large to ignore and international outrage is too loud to drown out, these corporations will jump on the bandwagon for the sake of free advertising. Yes, corporations has been CNBC. Okay. After all, why not why not why not pull all businesses out of a controversial country and claim to stand with Ukraine in solidarity? It's an advertising and markets um, some advertising and marketers' wet dream come true. Do these companies really care about the fate of Ukrainians being shelled and cluster bombed by Vladimir Putin's military? Of course not. It's just more virtual signaling for headlines and Twitter clout. However, when it's a minority population like Uyghurs being systematically mass murdered, we get nothing but crickets. Hypocrisy is louder than a stadium full of blowhorns. And once it rears its ugly head, people quickly take notice. The hypocrisy abounds, doesn't it? Corporations exist to make money, and that typically involves investing in a lot into things like research into target demographics and trends. Ever since radical wokeism took root, however, these companies keep missing the mark in the same way that every major polling outlet botched predicting predictions regarding the 2020 presidential election. The result is one bad decision after another with no option to course correct. If these corporations wish to continue making money, they need to ignore the radical left, fire their woke staffers, and get back to business. They need to stay out of politics and focus on selling their products or providing their respective services. True. That's 100% true. And that's what I know a lot of commentators have been saying. Myself, Yellow Flash, Tug, EVS, all many commentators have said that very same thing. And I do thank you for the like and share. Hopefully, we can get more friendly people in here. Yeah. Um, Anyways, continuing on with the article here. I nor anyone else cares whether their auto mechanic believes that biological males and females can swap genders on the fly. We also don't care whether our dentist buys into the writings of Ta-Nehisi Coates or Thomas Sowell. You can either fill a cavity or you cannot fill a cavity. Period. The more corporate America bends the knee to the woke mob, the more they weaken their own position, while opening up opportunities for competitors to rush in and fill the void. Take the recent Indiegogo crowdfunding success of Ascendant Star Spangled Squadron, which amassed 326% of its fixed goal from just 248 backers. So now it's gone to three times as much as they initially stated. So this at a time when the mainstream corporate comic book industry teeters on the brink of complete collapse, pushed heavily by the infusion of woke politics into story narratives for the sake of pushing the left's ideology. It has failed every time it has been tried. Oh, look right there. Walt Disney. Look at that. They even show it on. There's a picture of them showing it on CNBC right there. Disney loses vote on pay equity disclosure report. Look at that. Look at that thing tanking. All these startups need to do. All these startups need to do is walk behind the annihilation line that is woke American business and lay down their own proprietary foundations on top of the rubble. These large companies created the template for how these businesses should grow before wandering off into the cornfields. Competitors will emulate and learn from their mistakes. Yep. I'd say they already have. They're already doing that. I think we're seeing it every day. Hmm. Meanwhile, Disney and the rest of the misguided corporations in America can continue setting up camp on this particular fault zone and hope for the best. It's tactically brain dead. It's a tactically brain dead position to hold, and the only determining factor at play is just how much money they want to lose before they start to change. This comes hot on the heels of reports of Disney stock tumbling, along with internal rumblings between current Disney CEO Bob Chapek and his predecessor Bob Iger. The left seem to think that these woes are attributed to Disney's refusal to call out Florida's bill, which of course is not true. That was the exact opposite because they intended to. It's the ultimate no-win scenario if they appease the woke. They stave off short-term criticism while alienated an estimated 94% of the country, according to a Pew Group stat. If they ignore the woke, they will be accused of bigotry, hatred, and promotion of actual violence by the establishment mainstream left and the floundering out of touch Democrat Party. Yet the latter scenario is the correct choice. Short-term pain for long-term gain, as opposed to the other way around. How many corporations in America have the stones to do it? However, oh, I like how this guy writes. Dude is just straight on. Just straight on, dude. Go get him there, Slade. Go get him, Mr. Hale. Netflix kind of sort of did it with the Dave Chappelle debacle, but even there, concessions were made. Let's not forget that the woke loathe corporate America as a bunch of evil capitalists responsible for society's woes. Yet, when they are capable of leashing these same um, these same corporations and using them as ventriloquist dummies for left-wing radical messaging, they suddenly become noble and good. Ah, it's truly astonishing to watch the turnaround occur in real time. Yeah, I would have to agree with that there, Mr. Hale. This guy Slade Hale, he really writes it. I like this guy's writing. This guy really knows how to write it, doesn't he? Uh, Once again, the one and only response that will nullify and silence the woke for good is a single middle finger constantly aimed in their direction. Yep, that's exactly right. No words, no compromises, no cross table discussions. If everyone in America adopted this principle en masse today, wokeness would be gone tomorrow. CBS NewsHour. In the meantime, guard your children well because the political pedophiles on the left have decided to prey upon them. And they're using the classroom as the crime scene. Wow, oh wow, this guy's darting. This guy has some darting takes here. Slade Hale, he's got some real darting takes here. Man, let's see. Those who reject or criticize Florida's bill are guilty of promoting and greenlighting the sexualization of little children. Leave children alone and let them be children. Mhm. In the meantime, corporate America needs to wake up and stop playing footsie with people who never buy their products, watch their shows, or utilize their services. When the dust settles, those people will have moved on to another convenient target to harass and bully into submission. Uh-huh. Yep. That's right. Wow, we've had some good articles here tonight. And a lot of these articles, of course, came out yesterday, of course, but I like this guy Slade Hale's writing style, though. I mean, dude really just takes to the attack there. I like the man, such biting and darting commentary there from him. Just straight up. He just tells you like it is. Anyways, moving on to our last comic article of the evening here. Um, and we got Tom King now, I think, taking a page from John Ridley here, I guess, from based on some of this. Let's take a look at this now. Tom King does all kinds of nasty, sick things to Green Lantern Guy Gardner and DC Comics Human Target. Article by Spencer McCooley published today. So actually, this came out today. So, all right. Tom King's signature brand of subversion via character assassination has come for the Justice League International, as between the pages of his current run on DC Comics' latest volume of The Human Target, the notoriously edgy author has both metaphorically and literally killed the character of founding team member and fan favorite, Green Lantern Guy Gardner. See how this is The Human Target, Volume 1, Number 6, Chapter 6. It were a delicate strategy. Art by Greg Smallwood. Featuring illustrations by Greg Smallwood, Moon Knight Volume 8, King's DC Black Label Human Target series opens with Christopher Chance in a case of mistaken identity, poisoned with a near untraceable toxin while standing in for Lex Luthor during a public appearance. With only 12 days left to live, Chance sets out to uncover the identity of his accidental killer and solve the mystery of his own murder, only to quickly learn from the Justice Society's Doctor Midnight that the poisoning circulating through the system could only have originated from a member of the JLI. Two chapter two, we try comment words by God. Soon after beginning his investigation, Chance is met in his office by JLI member Cora Ice Olafsdottir, um, who, after learning of the plot to kill Luthor from a worried Dr. Midnight, approaches the dying man to offer her help investigating her former teammate. primarily to keep the authorities from misattributing the crime to her best friend, Beatrice Fire da Costa. Recalling her death at the hands of Overmaster during the 1990s DC crossover Judgment Day, Ice informs Chance that a subsequent investigation by Gardner into the villain's attack revealed that, quote, Overmaster came because Lex reached out to him. This is the Task Force Volume 1, Number 14, Judgment Day, Part 5, The Longest Yard. Words by Mark Wade, art by Sal Baluto, Jeff Albrecht, and Glenn Whitmore. I told, quote, I told by fire in brackets what Guy had said, he says. Quote, she went off about she was going to, she says a lot of things, she's hot headed, she doesn't mean it, but that day she said she wanted to kill Lex, unquote. Human Target, Volume 1, Number 2, quote, but I knew she didn't, unquote, she says. Yeah, quote, I knew she wouldn't. She's angry, but she's not a killer. If you know her, and I know her, unquote. Their first evening together soon ends with them sharing a kiss while swimming in the ocean. Next morning, much to his surprise, Trent awakes to find an angry gardener sitting at the foot of his bed. Depicted as a stereotypically, in small quote, violently jealous ex-boyfriend, the red-headed Green Lantern promptly proceeds to voice his disapproval of Chance's blossoming relationship with Ice, questioning his romantic rival. I quote, I heard you were hanging around my girl. What's your problem, man? Unquote. Chapter 3, that we are come. As Chance attempts to shoot Gardner in self-defense, the latter deflects the bullet with his ring, taunting the spy, quote, you think you're a smarty? You know just all about Ice, smarty? Let me tell you, you got no bleeping clue who that bleep is. Before beating him unconscious with a handful, no pun intended, of fist shaped constructs. Oh boy. Okay. Uh, Here are, I guess, the. After the spy awakens from his beating, he and Ice prepare to meet their first lead. Making their way to his car and setting a destination for Booster Gold, uh, stalking the two to a red light, Gardner once more inserts himself into the situation, pulling up alongside Chance's car and proceeding to speak once again like a bad movie stereotype of an abusive lover. Oh boy. Oh, Ice baby, I'm just doing what's best for you, unquote, cries Gardner. Quote, you know me, I know you, you don't know him. There's nothing more important to me than you, baby. We're forever, you and me. How many times did we say that? I remember you saying it to me. Don't you remember? Unquote. Following their meeting with Booster, the pair again find themselves face to face with Gardner, who this time has disassembled Chance's car in a childish attempt to offer ice. Oh boy. So, all right. So, anyways, Right, so we're back now. Anyways, blasted. All right, well, let's see if I can get everything else set back up. All right, just give me a few minutes, people, as I am just trying to get everything set back up here. That's actually why I should be doing why I'm doing that. Here, let me see if I can at least give you guys some. All right, I'm back. Anyway, sorry about that, guys. Didn't know I've been having issues with you the last few days here. Hopefully, we're trying to manage it a little better. Hopefully, I'll have it more permanently fixed this week. Uh, mm, All right, look, I do have. All right, thank you for coming back. Mm, Yeah, I know. Funny, huh? Yeah, well, hopefully, when the new wireless card comes this weekend, hopefully that will fix the problems. Till then, gonna try to manage as best as I can. So, anyways, let me get back to the point where it was here. I'm just trying to remember exactly where we were here. We were talking about how Tom King is really doing a number on Guy Gardner's character here. Um, once again trying to push his woke mindset. So let's see now. So we may let's see.